Today we're going to discuss your management plan for your classroom as part of the classroom management course you are currently taking. The first thing you need to do is determine the level of classroom structure for your room. Now, this may sound silly, but first you need to consider your needs. Your needs are designing your classroom so that when things pop up, you can handle them. Everybody's needs are different. It just depends on structure. So, for example, I am a very type A personality. I have to have it set to a T. My transitions have to be quick. I don't like organized chaos, and I know that about myself. Some of my classmates or some of my peers at work, they could handle a more loosey-goosey type environment, and the kids were fine either way. So when thinking about your classroom structure, think about your needs first. One of the things I'm going to have you complete before you finish out this course is a needs assessment for yourself. Here's what it looks like. Okay. What is your tolerance for background noise, for example? I wear hearing aids, and so I have very little tolerance for background noise. So I need it quiet when necessary. And I know that about myself. Well, how about you? What is your tolerance for individual voices, volume, pitch, whining, mumbling? What is your tolerance for interruptions? I don't mind interruptions. I go with the flow. The phone rings. Everything's fine. Some people can't handle them. They just don't like it when their lesson for the hour gets interrupted. What is your tolerance for background movement? This is another one, oddly enough, that did not bother me. Kids could get up, meet their needs. You may not want that. You may want them to ask permission first. What is your ability to multitask without becoming flustered? My husband says that multitasking is an impossible thing, that we can't do anything with quality when we multitask, and I actually completely disagree with them. I love multitasking. So when thinking about your classroom management style, complete this quick survey and turn it in just to do some self-reflection on how your structure is set up compared to the fact is whether or not it's meeting your needs. Then also consider your students' needs. What do they need from you in your classroom? And what I want to talk a little bit about when I say student needs is think about school connectedness. The concept that not smiling until April doesn't work anymore with kids. The structure in your room needs to be engaging. All biases need to be put aside. Your kids need to develop trust in you. Don't expect trust on the very first day. If they get frustrated or angry, talk to them about why. Don't try to calm that emotion. And lecturing isn't always connecting. Remember that. We have a tendency to rush to get through everything, but then your kids may struggle to keep up, and that's when you get behavior problems. So think about the structure for your students in your own classroom as well as your own. So based on those two thoughts, what level of structure do you need? I recommend starting the year with high structure. Now, this does not mean don't smile until April. What it means is have very clear procedures in place and practice them over and over and over. And as the year progresses, you can make adjustments. There's this old rule back in the day that said once your classroom management plan is set, you can't change it. If it's not working, change it. That's okay. You have to meet your needs and your students' needs to make learning happen in your room. Classroom rules. You need to develop and display classroom rules. Decide who will have input in the rules. Some teachers like to have total autonomy over this process. They do not want their students involved. It's their classroom, their rules, and that's perfectly fine. I, on the other hand, taught government for a while, so I thought it was in social studies, so I thought it was really important to have a democratic process in place to develop those rules for my kids so I could tie it into my actual curriculum. Rules should also be stated positively. When you walk into a classroom and it says, don't run, don't talk, don't come, don't do that, it creates a very negative environment for the kids. So try to word things that are friendly, such as come to class every day that you are not seriously ill. It's that, you stay on task during all work times. Try to develop some examples that are positively stated. Rules should also be specific and refer to observable behaviors. Plan to teach your rules using positive and negative examples. I don't know how many times I've seen teachers just slap it on a poster, throw it up on the wall, and call it good. If you don't take the time to teach them over and over and over again and refer to them, it's a waste of paper and poster board and paint and markers. You really need to make sure that you provide them with plenty of examples. Rules must also be applicable throughout the class period. Don't put a rule up that doesn't apply to your class, for example. And rules should be posted in a visible location. That should be common sense. Don't make it on a teeny tiny regular piece of paper and post it next to your desk. That's not going to work either. Make it nice, big, bright, and positive. So once you have your structure set and you have your rules set, then we can talk a little bit more about this idea of corrective consequences. I don't like it when I walk into a room and I see a teacher has a poster of their rules and then a poster of the consequences. Take those consequences down, because your consequences will change based on a couple things. 1, when the behavior occurred. 2, what was the behavior. 3, believe it or not, who was the student who did the behavior. And 4, how serious of the behavior was it. So having 3 or 4 consequences to cover anything that could possibly happen in your classroom just isn't feasible. So plan to implement corrective consequences consistently. Don't be wishy-washy. Make sure the corrective consequences fits the behavior, and that's really, really important. Implement with no emotion. Do not get emotionally involved when giving the consequence, and make it brief and no arguing at the time of the misbehavior. Some kids will thrive on that, and you don't want to see that you're worked up. You don't want them to get in an argument with you about it. Explain the situation, tell them what the consequence is, and move on very quickly. So this week, you're also going to develop a menu of corrective consequences that you can use in your classroom. This is for your reference. You do not have to post this. Let me pull up an example here. So here's an example of corrective procedures for mild and moderate classroom behavior. Anything from just a nonverbal to gentle verbal reprimand, proximity, humor. I love the fact that it says don't attempt humor if you are not naturally funny, right? I've seen teachers try to use humor and it wasn't very funny, and it actually backfired on them. So if you don't have that type of relationship with your students, just try a different corrective consequence, right? Frequency count, family contact, discussion. If you teach younger grades, the Bumpy Bunny timeout is a cute one to try. But basically, you're going to scroll through this list, take a look at it, and maybe you have some of your own. But this is also going to be one of your homework assignments this week in regards to developing corrective consequences menu. Finally, know when to use a discipline referral and make sure the communication is open between you and your administrator. Examples of when to send a disciplinary referral is when physical dangerous act occurs, insubordination, but let's talk about insubordination. There's a level of insubordination where the student needs a discipline referral, and then there's those where the teacher can handle it. Sit down, talk with your administrator, talk with your grade level peers, your department peers, and see, okay, when is insubordination okay to manage yourself, and when does it need administrative involvement? Having that open line of communication will sort out the concept of the kid not bringing the pencil 3 times to class. Well, that's not insubordination. But some teachers may view it that way and write up a discipline referral. So make sure you have a consistent understanding of when that needs to be filled out. Threats, refusals to follow directions, classroom disruptions. A lot of these are gray. Classroom disruptions, a kid laughs out loud and interrupts your instruction. I'm not sure I would send that, for example, to the administrator with a discipline referral. Now, if it's a constant 3 strikes, you're out type scenario, and you've done interventions and you've done reteaching, then do the discipline referral for classroom disruptions. So just some things to think about. So with your classroom management, thinking about it, you're also going to do a reflection piece this week in regards to completing your personal needs list, thinking about your classroom management plan and does it align with your needs, You're also going to create your corrective action menu, and then sit down and talk with your administrator about some of these if you're just not sure when to use a discipline referral.